Welcome to NFL Daily, where I'm going to be hearing dreams from cranberries in my head for the rest of this year. I am Gregg Rosenthal, and I am here in a hotel room where I'm afraid of waking up my neighbor at 1:30 in the morning, Dublin time. It was an incredible first game in Dublin. We will be breaking down everything that happened with the Steelers and the Vikings and Bill Murray. But I'm going to wrap that up at the end of my part of the show. Nick Shook is going to join us at the back end, and back in Los Angeles are Jourdan, Rodrigue, and Patrick Claybon, who are really going to carry me on this show. But you know what else is going to carry me?
What's that?
We had amazing games today.
Yes.
Let's actually go to Los Angeles, where you guys are, and talk a little bit about one of the 6 undefeated teams entering week 4. But after week 4, only 2 were left. Will the Colts be one of them?
Daniel Jones, 24 of 32 through the air. Ready to sling it again here. Heaves from his heels. Jump ball. Picked again! Cam Curl calls game! His first 2 interceptions as a Ram in week 4 against the Colts. LA is going to 3-1.
Oh, Danny Dimes was game, but JB Long at KSPN was more game. Great call there to wrap up a 27-20 victory for the Rams, knocking the Colts from the ranks of the unbeaten. This one had a little bit of everything, and I asked my main man here, Patrick Claybon, which game we should start the show with. Gave him a couple options, and he stood on the table and he said Rams and Colts. Why was that, Patrick?
Well, one, because the other game, the other option had some bad stuff happen in it. I like positivity and good stuff. And if you're a Colts fan, that was a rough one because there was so much that happened in this game up and down the field at SoFi Stadium. I'm on the air, doing Game Day Live, and Greg texts me, and it's like, all I could type was Rams with like 6 S's because it was just, it was so much fun. And I hate that, the one thing that people are going to remember from this game, which we'll get to in a moment, is one of those mistakes, but I think it's a positive for A.D. Mitchell. I'll just go over the play. A.D. Mitchell gets down the sideline, gets away from 2 Rams defenders, is going into the end zone, and anybody that's ever had a remote control and reached it to point it at the TV and for some reason thrown it across the room, that's what happened with A.D. Mitchell and the football. It goes out of the back of the end zone. He tried to recover it before it went out of the back of the end zone, but the Colts not only turn the ball over, but it's a turnover that's literally a touchdown that turns into a turnover, and the Rams they had opportunities after that, but it's ultimately a Matthew Stafford inside of the 2-minute warning, huge touchdown pass to Tutu Atwell.
Yeah, I saw so many different ways that the Rams could have won or lost this game, but the sequence to me, Jourdan, that stuck out was the 2-play sequence, 3rd and long. It's tied, or rather the Rams are trailing 20-13 with under 4 minutes to go in this game. And they throw a short pass to Puka Nacua. He breaks a couple tackles, sets up a 4th and short. Your boy Sean McVay now going for it because he found 4th down religion from you and goes right back to Puka Nacua, who gets a touchdown. Yes, the Rams were trailing 20-13 in this game with under 4 minutes to go, and they wind up winning by a touchdown. But man, Puka just shows up in every big spot this year. 13 catches for 170 yards.
They had no answer for him. They couldn't cover him, and the Rams, Sean McVay was using him in so many different ways, and they literally had no real answer for Puka Nacua, who, by the way, after that touchdown, was in the crowd yelling, "This is my city. This is my city."
There it is.
I like that his the edgier side of his personality, the competitive fire that we know from afar so well, but he's such a bubbly, happy, joy guy that it's like, no, yeah, there's a monster in there too.
Yeah, 15 targets. He caught 13 of them for 170 yards and a touchdown. This Rams defense that went up against Saquon Barkley last week, the test was Jonathan Taylor, who did have a long one that ultimately got called back by an A.D. Mitchell holding call. Again, rough one for the second-year receiver out of Texas. But they keep Jonathan Taylor to 4.5 yards per carry. And we heard the Cam Curl interception to end the game. Cam Curl had an interception earlier in the game. Kitchens almost got one. We almost got dual overhead cam in this one, but Kitchens couldn't quite hold on to this one. There were so many plays to pick from that just highlight. If you haven't seen this game, go get NFL Plus, get NFL Pro, watch it and consume it because Jared Verse had one of the best reps I've seen
my God.
all year. He decleats the center to the extent that Daniel Jones had no chance on a third down.
Yeah, and he lets him hear it too. And Kobe Turner gets in the mix, and they're doing this thing now that they started in Philly last year where they're going, it's what is the Gladiator, where they're putting their thumbs out and then tilting them down. All of a sudden, that is the Jared Verse sack celebration. He's a menace. I mean that in the best way possible. You know, it was interesting that this defense once again had to show up, and still glaring concerns, minus Cam Curl's interceptions, glaring concerns about the secondary, particular the perimeter. That was really tough to watch because it's just been a problem the Rams have known about since the spring, and there was whispers about them maybe being in the mix on Jalen Ramsey, and then the price is too high on that, and all of these things, and our pass rush is going to help our quarterback. But then Daniel Jones started getting the ball out fast, and minus a couple of these big splash plays that the Rams front, the pass rush did make, that you really saw the way that they were at least going to try to mitigate some of that pressure, and teams down the stretch will certainly follow suit.
Look, they're not going to be carried by their defense, but I think a day when you're playing this Colts team, which has been so good, and in the third quarter, granted, they get that lucky fumble from A.D. Mitchell, but then they force a couple 3-and-outs after that, and then you finish the game. As you guys mentioned, there was that Jared Verse force fumble, gets the ball back for the Rams with under 2 minutes to go. The Colts fall on that fumble, but then the Rams get it back under 2 minutes, and Tutu Atwell, I believe he only had about 9 yards on the season coming into this day.
4.
That was true going into even the last couple of minutes into this game. And then we had a 2-2 moment.
Stafford from his own 12-yard line set up in the shotgun. Has the snap, hits his back foot, lobs the ball left side. Tutu's open, over the shoulder, catch 40. Tutu down the left sideline with a vapor trail behind him. 10-5, touchdown LA!
That's such a good call, a vapor trail behind him. That was his second catch of the season, his fourth target. I mean, let's go. Get this guy more involved. He clearly, he beat his guy immediately. You could see it when they showed the replay of it. He beat his defender immediately, and he's wide open streaking down the sideline. It was interesting. There was a shot, I've known Tutu for a while because I've covered him and watched all of this happen year over year where, you see all the potential and the speed, and then it's somehow underutilized. And then you're also seeing the Rams start these games pretty slowly year over year, especially early in the season, for the last couple of seasons. And you sit there and you think, what's going on in that guy's mind? But I will say, to his credit, he has never once complained about any of this. He's never raised his voice. He's never had a coach to player, to my knowledge, personal meet. Like he shows up and does his job. And when he is, I call it a wow play, wide open, when he's streaking down the field like that, you hit him. And then he goes and gets sort of a, not as vibey as I would have thought, hug from Sean McVay. Very vibey from Sean McVay. Not as vibey in return from Tutu Atwell, I don't think. Yeah.
Well, they still, maybe Tutu didn't want to celebrate too early. They still had to make a stop, and they did it, like I mentioned, to end the game with the forced fumble by Verse, and then you get the interception to cap it off. Rams get to 3-1. Colts fall to 3-1. That feels right. Ultimately, the Rams did outgain them by about 120 yards in this game. No pat on the back or moral victory that the Colts were right there. I feel like they'll feel it was a bit of a missed opportunity for a statement win, but they are here to stay, especially on offense. Would that be the case in our next game? We knew one of the teams was going to lose. Would it be the Eagles or the banged up Bucs to Tampa?
Barkley is back in the game. They're going to tush push. Hurts, fakes.
Thinks so.
He's going to run.
I don't think so.
And he's going to score. It's Barkley.
They fake the tush push. They give it to Barkley.
And he's in for the touchdown.
Around the outside on the left, and he goes in.
Yes, he does.
Unscathed. No one touches him.
That was huge.
Oh, when you fooled Merrill Reese, you fooled America. Saquon Barkley with the touchdown. Off the fake tush push. Mike Quick jumping into the mix there, 31-25. The Bucks lose rather in a game where they had a number of opportunities late. Yes, that score by Saquon was in the third quarter, and the Eagles offense, Jourdan, ultimately did not get much done in the second half except for that 25-yard drive. Ultimately, though, 200 yards of offense was enough to get the victory.
Yeah, you joked with me before this game, Greg, that the games I had today, all this week really, were kind of Jourdan coded. Like this very much was, because it's, the Eagles, of whom I'm a fan, and my beloved Tampa Bay Bucks. And this was so lopsided in the Eagles' favor at first, and it turned into a total game of resilience and this like quiet endurance for both teams, and a game that I really hope we get to see again in the postseason. It was cool, calm, and collected Jalen Hurts starting the game nearly perfect in the suffocating heat. Yes, that is a Todd Bowles blitz reference. And also it was 100 freaking degrees on the visitors' sideline. And Jalen Hurts was 8 for 9 for 59 yards against the blitz, and it came at a 55% rate in the first half, 7 for 7 for 79. And obviously the other two touchdowns, which were the brotherly shovel, right? I can't take credit for that, but a shovel pass out of the tush-push formation to Dallas Goedert twice. And, Saquon Barkley wasn't running super effectively against the number one Bucks run defense and success rate right now, but the Eagles still had their way thanks to this blocked punt return for a touchdown and all of the tush-push trickeration. And it just did not look like the Eagles could do any wrong. But then the offense could not close. They went super conservative. Jalen Hurts started the second half 0 for 8 passing, and they still were struggling to run the ball. And as we know, guys, the second half of Tampa Bay Buccaneers games in 2025 are for Baker ball. And that is exactly what happened, for better and for worse. He almost got them back in the game with 270-plus yard touchdowns. First to Emeka Buka, shout out, and also to Bucky Irvin. And it was a little bit of a redemption because Bucky Irvin had fumbled earlier. But Baker giveth and Baker taketh away, because then he threw a really bad interception right to Jahad Campbell. And that was basically all she wrote after that.
Mayfield again in the gun. First and goal. Mayfield back. He's being chased. He starts to run. He goes to the outside, and he is firing, and it is tipped and intercepted. It was intercepted by Jahad Campbell.
I have mixed feelings because I love Jahad Campbell, and I also love Baker Mayfield. And you put those two in a situation like that to make a dumb play, and my God, was that a dumb play?
Well, I think because I have a tendency to look at a play like that, especially from Baker, and say he's trying to do too much.
Yeah.
But if not for Baker Mayfield playing him that way, the Buccaneers aren't in position to have that comeback attempt. There was a Baker scramble, extended the play, throws a seeing eyeball to Emeka Egbuka that somehow goes through two defenders for a 60-plus yard touchdown. And then he's running around doing everything in the pocket, and Jahad Campbell's trying to cover Bucky Irving for what feels like 12 minutes, and he hits 72 yards to Bucky Irving, where those are the ways that the Bucs kind of live and die.
Yeah.
And they just happen to die by it. But what a second half defensive performance from them. But it's not sustainable to try to come from behind and win every single week in the NFL.
Yeah, and I want to say the heat actually was a factor in this, because you could see, they made a lot of it on the broadcast, but some of these guys looked so gassed, and I think rightfully so.
Same thing last week too.
I mean, it was, it was brutal out there because as they explained thoroughly on the broadcast, the bench is placed directly, the visitor bench, in the direct sun, and it's getting warmer out there year over year, and so you're seeing these players who have their own personal like shade holders that they brought along for the trip, like people holding the shades over the benches for them. It was a all out fist fight of a game in the third and fourth quarters, and I think for me, it's really hard to be mad at either of these teams if you are coaching them or if you're a fan of them, because the Eagles, I would say, yeah, they should have salted the game away much earlier than they did. But they also, showed out in the first half. It could have been enough against maybe a lesser team. The Bucs fought and fought and fought, and they are so beat up. Our friend Carmen Vitale, she pointed out that the right side of their offensive line is literally named Haggard and Heck. So it's like, it's all going great in that regard. And they're so injured. And Chris Godwin was back, but he wasn't really a factor. Obviously getting his feet under him. So the Bucs, I think, have a lot to be proud of. The Eagles obviously have a lot to clean up, but big splash plays at the very beginning of this could have decided it right away.
Right. They got the ball, after that great first half, 8 times in the second half. They only scored once, and that was on a 25-yard drive. The other drives went for -9, 7, -7, -10, 0, 8, and then they took an intentional safety at the end of the game. That's losing football ultimately, but they had a huge lead. You throw the ball to 9 times to A.J. Brown and you get 7 yards. That's not just being conservative, that's being ineffective. So it's really interesting when I look at the larger picture, and I said there's only going to be 2 undefeated teams at the end of this day, and obviously one of them's the Eagles. It's funny because I feel like the fans of each one of those teams are not really satisfied, but ultimately it's a lot like a year ago where the Eagles didn't play their best football in the first quarter of the season, and they were 2-2 last year. They just happen to be 4-0 this year, and they have a lot of room to improve. Bucs at 3-1, and shout out to Chase McLaughlin, who hit the longest outdoor field goal in the history of professional football at 25 years old. I mean, at 65 yards out. So great job there by Chase. Both teams at 3-1. Let's go to 2 teams that were not undefeated heading into today. We knew either the Chiefs or the Ravens were going to be 1-3 and not feeling good. And the loser in this one, I think, feels even worse than we expected.
They bring Rashard Smith in motion to the left side car position. Mahomes feet staggered, takes the snap between the 1 and the 5, down the rail to the end zone, touchdown, Kansas City. Tyquan Thornton learning how to be a red zone receiver.
Oh, it's Mitch Holthus enjoying the sweet nectar of the end zone once again. Patrick Mahomes is back to doing Patrick Mahomes things. He goes up and down the field, and I feel like we have a Tyquan Thornton highlight just about every week. Mahomes throws for 4 touchdowns, 270 yards, and the Chiefs win 37-20 over the Ravens. Lamar Jackson leaves this game with a hamstring injury, and yes, the injuries to the Ravens will be the biggest story coming out of this game. But before we go through all that and whatever Patrick Claybon is doing to disassociate himself from what happened Sunday at GEHA Field. I mean, do we have to say that every single time? I do want to give credit to the Chiefs and just point out before we get to the Ravens of it all that in the first 5 drives of this game, the Chiefs go field goal, touchdown, missed field goal. That's the first half. After halftime, it's another touchdown, field goal, touchdown. So they did whatever they wanted on offense, while the Ravens were missing some of their starters before the game even started and then continued to lose them throughout. So bully to them. More importantly, I think it's important to note, even though the Ravens lost Ronnie Stanley during this game at left tackle, basically right away, they had 7 drives with Lamar Jackson. They had 13 points. Lamar turned the ball over 2 times. It was the most impressive performance that I think the Chiefs defense has had all year and that the Chiefs have had as a whole. So, Patrick, I'll start with you too on the Chiefs side of things. Just that, look, they looked more like the Chiefs, and I think coming out of this week, they will feel better, even if ultimately we're probably going to be talking about what happened to the Ravens in this game more.
No, and getting Xavier Worthy back obviously changed a whole lot about the pass game. Like while Marlon Humphrey was still in the game, there was difficulty covering Xavier Worthy. The Ravens had issues getting lined up, but a lot of that comes to Andy Reid's play calling and the ability to have guys shift and get in different positions where they were able to execute. And Isaiah Pacheco averaged 5 yards a carry. This is a game that didn't have to rely on Patrick Mahomes being a leading rusher. Yeah. Xavier Worthy had a great play on the outside. So you start to see this full Chiefs offense come to fruition, and hopefully it's something that they could sustain, and it's not just because they were playing an opponent that's really struggling, especially on the defensive side of the ball, but it made more sense to see the way that the Chiefs operated and executed today. And then on the other side, this is a team that's clearly in disarray, that has a significant number of issues, not just limited to play calling and execution, but also performance as well. And so it's the expectations can't really do much for you You just have to go out there and play. And I understand the schedule hasn't been very kind, but a lot of folks have played a lot of really good teams. And so you just have to hope that, like you mentioned, Ronnie Stanley, Marlon Humphrey, Roquan Smith, Lamar Jackson, just the laundry list, Kyle Van Noy's over there hurt on the sideline, no Nnamdi Madubuike. And so, yeah, it's extensive injuries. And you just hope that everybody can get back and the team can be somewhat watchable as 2025 continues.
I know, Patrick, that other teams have played tough schedules, but no one's played the Chiefs, Lions, and Bills like in the first 4 weeks of the season. That's brutal. And you mentioned a lot of the injuries like going into today. So to be clear, who left the game today? Lamar Jackson was seen limping, according to Jeff Darlington, on the way to the bus. Looked pretty slow on the way there. John Harbaugh wasn't sure of the severity. Said none of the injuries that happened today were season-ending type of injuries. But Marlon Humphrey left. Nate Wiggins left during the game. You mentioned Roquan Smith. That was during the game. Ronnie Stanley, their left tackle, barely played at all. And then the defensive line starters that they were missing coming into it: Broderick Washington, Madubuike, and Travis Jones. And yeah, it's hard to really operate as a team that way, and you kind of feel the weight of what's happening to this Ravens team early this season, starting out at 1-3, Jourdan.
Because it's not, the injuries are significant, right? But they have had questions about their defense to start back-to-back seasons now, and I've been the first one to praise defensive coordinator Zach Orr with the adjustments he made last season and the way that this group was starting to play. You have to be healthy to be able to do that and to be able to adjust accordingly. And it was, I think, concerning in parts to see, this Chiefs team has really struggled to move the ball, and and then to see them move with such ease at times, frequently against this Ravens defense. I think it's super, super concerning to me. But I also hold that in my head at the same time as, yes, Xavier Worthy is such a factor in this offense, and that was the plan coming in. It's almost like the wrench in the plan was the accidental contact where he got taken out by Travis Kelce. You could see that's in part what made everything so hard for the Chiefs these last couple of weeks, is adjusting once suddenly out of totally unplanned scenario, even more so than maybe your typical injury on any given play, is completely altering and changing what you're going to do, even mathematically and spacing and all of these things. And we have to remember Rashee Rice is going to be coming back. And so there's these influxes of speed and versatility into this Chiefs offense where I feel very differently about the Chiefs offense than I did last week or the week before, for example. But I don't know. I would like to see sustainability because, again, this Ravens defense is awful right now. And there are big questions and big problems that need fixing. And I don't know if they can have the answers because they don't have players.
Well, we'll see how awful they are next week when they host the Texans, because that's kind of a litmus test of like, you should be able to slow them down. But I don't know that they will. Like those are two pretty tough games back to back, Texans and Rams, before their bye week, and they hope to get some help. I mean, this game was such a blowout that they were already having the conversation on the telecast of like, well, the AFC North doesn't look that great this year. So if you're gonna be 1-3, but I think it all depends obviously on Lamar Jackson's hamstring. And yeah, the thing that popped about Worthy to me, it was almost like he had been like recharging his battery during during that break, because he just like leapt. So maybe it's just the rest of the team is a little bit slower, and he just like leapt off the screen. He led the team in rushing. Their rushing attack still did not look too good today, but man, they are going to be breathing a sigh of relief. And yes, NFL Daily superfan Nick Wright is going to be smiling. Let's take a break. Those were some of the biggest games of the day, and yet like this second block that we have, I swear we have all winners in them. Like, it was a great week 4 of games.
Scatterboo the back. Dart, design run. Up the middle he goes to the 10, to the 5. Touchdown, Giants! Jackson Dart! Got a quarterback draw from 15 yards out in his first start. Gives the Giants the lead.
Oh, Jackson Dart is fired up. You know who else is fired up? Brian Dable. You know who else is fired up? Every daytime host at WFAN. You know who else is fired up? Bob Hoppa. Giants beat the undefeated Chargers 21-18. They're the first 0-3 team to beat a 3-0 team since 2008. Everyone said Daboll's desperate, going to Dart, like you're just doing this to save your job. Hey, maybe you should have started this kid week 1, or maybe he wasn't really the deciding factor in this game. That's up to Patrick Claybon to decide. He's the one who watched this game the closest.
Yes, and I will say it was a rookie that was the reason the Giants were that first team to beat an undefeated team despite being defeated, and that player was Abdul Carter. Abdul Carter had pressures on 25% of his pass rush snaps, the ultimate why the Giants were able to win this game. A big part of it was Joe Alt was on the sideline in a walking boot at the end of the game. He got carted off in the first quarter. Of course, the Chargers playing without Rashawn Slater already anyway. They had to make a lot of shuffles up front. And then another big injury, which is the reason I didn't want to start with this game, Malik Neighbors is done for the year with a torn ACL. There was a free play in the second quarter. Dart gives him a chance down the sideline. He plants his right foot hard into the ground to try to go up, and his knee gives way. It was carted off after that, but the Giants continued to make plays on defense. Dexter Lawrence had a tip and interception. He almost brought it all the way back, if not for a Justin Herbert tackle. The Giants left with a field goal after a great tackle by Cam Hart on Cam Scadaboo there. And we had already started with a Jackson Dart touchdown drive on the opening possession. He ran that in. He got his first career touchdown pass on a shovel play because of another great Giants defensive play as Drew Phillips, who's been on the receiving end of a lot of touchdowns this season. Tyquan Thornton famously had the arm up celebration while Phillips was on top of him for the touchdown for the Chiefs. He got an almost pick six, a play that we thought might have been coming back for defensive pass interference. It was actually offensive pass interference. Keenan Allen ran him down the sideline. A great effort there. Wasn't able to keep him out of the end zone because Dart had the shovel pass. It was just consistent pressure and playmaking from a Giants defense that I was skeptical about, like at this point in the season, Jourdan. I'm like, you're going to have to show me. They went out and showed me. Ireland's own Jude McAtomney came in and kicked multiple field goals on a day where we celebrate Ireland in general. Just a fun game where the bright spot for the Chargers, like plays from Quentin Johnston. Omarion Hampton averaged almost 10 yards a carry in this game. So the game script, maybe you go back and, we were celebrating, hey, Greg Roman, like, this is great, throwing the ball more. After the game, you wonder, like, could Hampton have gotten the ball more? But not to take anything away from a playmaking Giants defense that took advantage of what was presented to them today.
I feel a little like I cursed the Chargers by calling them, I believe, one of the best teams in football, but a few days ago. Because, there were some serious questions about their offensive line, which was already dealing with injuries, as we know. Mekhi Becton, I believe, is still in the concussion protocol. He certainly wasn't available this week. And then Joe Alt had to get carted off, and that's awful. I mean, he's an absolute stud left tackle filling in for Rashawn Slater, who, when Rashawn Slater comes back, will probably move over on the right side because Joe Alt is not relinquishing that job. I thought that Jackson Dart has the juice. And I thought that he handled this Jesse Minter cloudy cover 2, very, very strange morphing zone that looks the same pre-snap and changes it to a billion different things post-snap and matches down hard on routes that make it look like man coverage, even though it starts as zone. Like, that is hell for a young quarterback. And what did Jackson Dart do? If he didn't really know what he was seeing, but he saw a lane, he would go and take that lane. Now, he took some hits I think that they would like for him to not be taking deep in the season, although from the way those fired Brian Daboll up, I feel like Brian Daboll has no regard or concern. He's just amped up watching all of this happen. But Jackson Dart, I thought, played really, really solid football especially his first time out there in real football against one of the toughest defenses in the NFL. And he made the most with any space that he had. And he did it with like this style and this gusto that you could tell, like, just got the crowd into it. Like, Eli Manning is posting about him on social media about the dance that he did after he ran in his own touchdown at the beginning of the game. This kid's got it. He's just got it,
Yeah,
I'm always worried about whenever someone says that they got it. I think the last time we heard it that often was about Tim Tebow. And wouldn't you know it, Jackson Dart is the first quarterback in his first start to have a passing touchdown, a rushing touchdown, and at least 50 rushing yards since Mr. Tebow.
I don't see Tim Tebow hitting a TikTok dance in the end zone and wearing a diamond chain. I don't really see that. Like I feel like it's pretty clear what Jackson Dart was getting everybody into this vibe with him.
Yeah, and ultimately what he does is he unleashes the RPO back into Brian Daboll's offense, and you could say like, oh, he's just going off one read. Well, yeah, he's being decisive. And ultimately, there were times where that first read was taken away. Tuli Tuipulotu had 3 sacks today. A couple of those where Jackson Dart just kind of running out of options, not having anywhere to escape. And like, okay, I guess I'll just turtle up here and take the sack. But in terms of that, like not trying to do too much, not really playing outside of structure, and in a game where sometimes you go through on NGS sort by completion probability just to see what the quarterbacks were dealing with. Herbo was obviously going through a lot in terms of he had a lot of very, very low completion probability completions, but Dart had a couple of his own, including like a 3rd and 6 deep inside his own territory. His own end zone, like 3 yards behind him, rolls out. He's running 13 miles an hour, fires a ball to Darius Slayton on the sideline, and that's the it that we see. It's not just some metaphorical it.
It's not Tebowing, Greg.
Yeah, it's a guy that has the talent and the ability to make plays, and that's why Brian Daboll's more hugs today from Brian Daboll than we've ever seen ever.
You guys, one of my predictions coming into the season was that we would finally see Brian Daboll smiling again. And he wasn't just smiling. My dude had the quarter zip pulled all the way down, 7 chains hanging out, very New York, very smiley, goes up, hugs Jackson Dart multiple times, slaps him on the front of his pads. Jackson Dart's so fired up. This was a vibe between, and it's relief and probably catharsis from Brian Daboll. And he probably forgot his face could move like that, frankly.
Yeah, let's hear from Brian Daboll, all fired up after the game.
Look, I got a lot of confidence in our rookie quarterback. But he's a rookie quarterback, so there's going to be mistakes that be made. We know that. There'll be more next week. There were some this week. It's not going to be perfect. I've went through this before, 7 years ago, whatever it may be. But, the run in the end zone, kid's a competitor. It's not going to be perfect. I'm sure he'll be the first one to tell you there's a lot that he can do better. We got to continue to help him do it better. But I like his traits. I like his toughness. I'm glad we got him.
I just want to remind you guys, I had a rookie quarterback 7 years ago. You might have heard from him.
Look me up. Good. He said, look me up.
Yeah.
Google me.
No other offensive coordinator has possibly succeeded with that guy. It is crazy, like how happy everyone is on a day that Malik Neighbors is lost for the season. Because I think the reality of that is really going to hit over the next couple of months and even in the next couple of days. And it's a shame. One of the best young players in the league. And I think the reality of Alt's injury is really going to hit home because I thought the Chargers offensive line really struggled last week. I thought their defense kind of struggled last week and got bailed out on a couple of times. And they don't have the same pass rush without Khalil Mack. And Ladd McConkey gets 6 targets in this game, has 1 catch. That they're so pass heavy, as you mentioned, 41 passes to 13. And they just helped the Giants fill up the stat sheet. Brian Burns, 4 quarterback hits. Abdul Carter, 5 quarterback hits. Kayvon Thibodeau, 3 quarterback hits. You mentioned all the pressure. I mean, that is just an outrageous pounding that Justin Herbert took today. But that's why they play the game 3-0, 0-3. Each one no longer have zeros in the standings. Let's go to San Francisco, where, yes, the 49ers entered the day undefeated. Would the Jaguars knock them off?
There's the snap. There's the punt. Parker backs up, fields it at the 15-yard line. Made a man miss, 25-yard line, 30-yard line. That's good return to Parker. Wide still on feet, 50, 40, 30, 20, 15, 10, 5, touchdown. Parker Washington just brought it all the way back, and the Jags have extended the lead.
Oh, it's a big-time play by Parker Washington. Jaguars win 26-21, and you look at the score and you think, oh, their offense must have been the key. No, this Jaguars special teams, and then especially their defense, Jourdan, has become the story of their 3-1 start to the season.
Yeah, and it was so fun to watch those guys fly around. We've been saying this since the season began. They are much better than I think people might have expected. And we can cut the music now. But the Jaguars defense was the big story today. They had 4 takeaways Sunday. They have a league-leading 13 takeaways overall. There was a first half takeaway that was a punch out by Dennis Gardeck, which still, I mean, the name just cracks me up every single time. The Jaguars recovered. They scored a touchdown on the very next play. Devin Lloyd had 2 interceptions today, one in the second quarter and one in the third quarter. And former San Francisco 49er Eric Armstead hit Brock Purdy to force a fumble and halt a San Francisco comeback attempt right after the Jaguars missed a late field goal and we're up 5 points. Let's listen to it.
Purdy under center this time. Play fake, drop the Jags blitz. He hit him, the ball's out! The ball is out! They knocked it out of there! Jacksonville trying to jump on top of it! No signal yet!
That's the Jaguars ball.
The Jags have it! They created yet another turnover, and they got the ball away from the 49ers!
Yeah, minus the missed field goal late there, it was really interesting because special teams, you're right, Greg, special teams and defense were the absolute keys to this game, and the offense kind of just barely did just enough. They're still plagued by a lot of things that do plague young teams. They are still developing in staying disciplined pre-snap. They had 12 penalties that cost them 12 accepted penalties for 90 yards. A lot of these came from like the illegal shifts, and a lot of this offense is predicated on formation changes and shifts and motions. And a lot of this was just a young group still trying to figure out what all the details are. But on defense, they are here. They are ready to go. On special teams, Bashal Tutenhive also returned a 54-yard kick return. The 49ers had no idea what to do with either of these 2 Jaguars return specialists and on special teams itself. And I just thought that this is a team that is so much closer to being complete than most everybody expected them to be under mostly new coaches and coordinators. Heath Farwell, their special teams coordinator, I misspoke earlier this season, has been there and is a very experienced coordinator. But so many of these guys are new. Anthony Campanelli, they kept like cutting to him on the sideline, and he just was as happy as could be, making play after play with his group. And this just they're very close to being a very complete and extremely thorough and dominant team. And it's just cleaning up these discipline things, these little details. I did not like some of the clock management by Liam Cohen, especially they could have had another touchdown. They settled for a field goal, left points on the board before halftime. There was just some bad calls and clock management. They're calling plays underneath when they need them to go out of bounds. Trevor Lawrence had a huge mistake where he should have run out of bounds, but he slid down, he should have slid down inbounds and was arguing that he did, but he went out of bounds. And then former Los Angeles Ram turned Jacksonville Jaguars savior, Hunter Long, who had a touchdown earlier in the game, made the situational mastery play to ice the game at the end on a conversion. The 49ers had no timeouts left. Kyle hates his timeouts. So this was a game where 2 phases made up for some of the little mental mistakes of the offense. And I think that's really important for a developing team.
A game where we saw the explosion back once again for Travis Etienne, who's like, oddly enough, like, it's not like he's coming back from something other than not really performing to the level that we had seen him. But it's like, is Travis Etienne like a comeback player of the year candidate at one point? He's down the sideline, like gives a hesitation move, finishes it on a great run. He averages upwards of 6 yards a carry in this game against the 49ers. And we saw the contribution from Parker Washington. He continues to contribute even more in the receiving game. And this time, looking at Brian Thomas Jr.'s in versus out breaking structure, we're dead even on in and out breakers on this game, but he lined up out wide for the majority of time, and he got more targets on out breaking routes. So that the Jags starting to come into this place where they understand who they are and what they want to be. We didn't see as much Travis Hunter on defense in this game in Santa Clara, and I'm kind of starting to wonder if it's more matchup dependent on how Travis Hunter will be deployed, which is also something. It's not a negative thing that he's got most of his snaps on offense in this game. It's just the staff is understanding how they want to deploy Travis Hunter, and it's hard. Other than a weird offensive lull that they went through in the middle to late part of the game, a really solid cross country win for the Jacksonville Jaguars.
I love that, Patrick, that you're on the Brian Thomas corner, like which way that his routes go each and every week. The San Francisco 49ers, by the way, had a Golston in this game. I don't know if you guys are familiar with what a Golston is, but that's when a team has 0 quarterback hits or sacks in an entire game. It is the first time in a decade that has happened. And just to put a button on it, there was a lot of talk all week about Liam Cohen, Kyle Shanahan, and who's mad at who. And amazingly, all the play calling controversy does end with a little, I wouldn't say altercation, but conversation between Liam Cohen getting into it a little bit with Robert Saleh after the game. Kyle Shanahan was asked about it.
After the game, Liam and Saleh were exchanging words. Are you surprised that, I assume over sign stealing, are you surprised that Cohen maybe wasn't thrilled about that?
No, try to clear it up, but I didn't see what happened, so I'm not sure. Don't think you should be that sensitive about it, but it is what it is. Not too worried about it.
Oh, it's like he's a disappointed dad. The kids from the tree are fighting. The kids from the rival coaching trees are fighting with each other. I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed that we all can't handle this more maturely. That's what I'm picking up from Kyle Shanahan.
The conversation, Robert Saleh said, the Jags and a lot of people in the McVay coaching tree are very proficient at legally going through the process of understanding what your calls are. And he was effusive in his praise. He said multiple times, they're not cheating. Nothing's going wrong here. But yeah, Liam Cohen, who is probably one to accept a perceived slight, has accepted it and was demonstrative after the game to the point where people are holding him back. Like, I don't know, let him go. Let's see what happens. Why not? I like
that both of these teams are 3-1. I feel like they both deserve to be 3-1. It was a lot of Christian McCaffrey held under 3 yards per carry again.
It was a lot of drops, Greg. Oh,
yeah,
man.
At one point in this game, Greg, Christian McCaffrey had 17 targets, and I'm not sure what he finished up with, but at that point, he had run 7 more routes than anybody else on the team as well. Like, it's all Christian McCaffrey and nothing else.
It was a really heavy workload game for him. You could tell that that's something to me to be concerned about, just because we know his injury history and all of that. There was a ton of drops by the 49ers skill players. I give Jacksonville's defense a ton of deserved credit, but Kendrick Bourne dropped 2 passes. Christian McCaffrey and Kyle Juszczyk both dropped passes. Christian McCaffrey lost the ball, but recovered his own fumble. Obviously, Brock Purdy fumbled. This was a sloppy game, and part of it is because they're so banged up. Jourdan Jennings got hurt multiple times during the game, entered the game hurt. Ricky Pearsall got hurt during the game, had to get his knees checked out. Demarcus Robinson is here for the first game. It's just a lot of embattled and injury-laden people all trying to make something happen, and it's a short week coming up for San Francisco.
Yeah, they got a big game against the Rams, and look, they were able to move the ball quite a bit in this game, ultimately outgaining the Jaguars, but it wasn't enough. They fall to 3-1. Let's go to the Buffalo Bills, the biggest favorite on Sunday, the biggest favorite against the Saints team in about 30 years.
Back in the shotgun here, split backs, play clock down to 4 on 1st and 10 from the 28. Takes the snap, fakes the throw to the flat, looks down the sideline, he's got Kincaid, who's gonna walk it in for a 23-yard touchdown. Oh, they got the Saints biting on that one. Fake to the flat, throw to the sideline, and it's easy peasy lemon squeezy.
Wow. Chris Brown of WGR with his weekly Josh Allen did something cool highlight. Bills win 31-19 in a game that was competitive. I'm not going to say surprisingly competitive, because we said on this show, we think the Saints are going to cover that 15.5. And you know what? They did it, by gone. Were you really worried, though, Jourdan, that the Bills were going to lose this game at any point?
I mean, when I saw them only put up 13 yards of offense in the in the second quarter, I'm like, hey, knocking on the glass. Are you awake in there? Come on, guys. And then, of course, every single week, I feel like we all know the phrase over years, and certainly this season with the defense playing the way that it is, we know the phrase, thank God we have Josh Allen. And this was a thank God we have Josh Allen game, especially for the defense. He ripped out a 27-yard run late in the game, right up the guts of the Saints defense, right before that touchdown pass to Dalton Kincaid. It was so cool. Some of the things that he was able to do. He pump faked and extended plays and got linebackers to bite, and they needed it. They needed every bit of Josh Allen magic because you guys, the Saints, I think, surprised some people today. They certainly surprised the Bills, and the Bills defense. I'm going to be extremely curious what the advanced all-22 and some of the people who go and they count these things and missed tackle rate and all of these things over the next couple of days once the all-22 of this is available, because there were missed tackles after missed tackles after missed tackles. The Saints, Kendre Miller, they could not tackle him. They could not bring him down. And this was a game where, yes, they took the ball away. Spencer Rattler was under duress often, but at the same time, they took bad angles. They missed him. He slipped a couple of would-be pressures and sacks a couple of times, and they could not contain the Saints on the ground. They had allowed 171 rushing yards by the end of the third quarter. This defense remains my biggest concern with this Buffalo Bills team.
I got some stats for you just on that. They allowed 165 yards after contact in this game. That was the third most by any team since 2018. Kendre Miller and Alvin Kamara forcing 4 missed tackles apiece. So yeah, they've struggled to tackle, and the Saints have been pretty good at going on long drives. They don't always finish it with touchdowns. Sometimes they finish it with Chris Olave, interceptions on a pass.
Just why? Just why?
But man, I got a text from Nick Wesseling, who was watching this game, and he was just like, you know what? Spencer Rattler's pretty good. Spencer Rattler's solid. I think that's like our number one takeaway from this Saints season. Is like, Spencer Rattler, 0-4, but pretty solid.
Yeah, which is why, as you mentioned, you might keep the ball in his hands and not try to have Chris Olave, who never had a completion at Ohio State or in his NFL career, throw the Philly special in like Kellen. Like, that wasn't even your Eagles team. Like, this is...
It's too cute. Get the basics down first. Chris Olave did not have a touchdown in the season yet when they ran that play. A receiving touchdown. You're going to try to get him a passing touchdown before you get this man a receiving touchdown? I mean, don't get too cute. Do the basics. Move the ball. Score the ball. And I cannot stand stuff like that. I love trick plays. That is too cute. Stop it.
Well, at a certain point, like, Philly is no longer a trick play. Like, everybody has seen it. We've seen it on the biggest stage, and the Bills were all over that. Olave's having to make that throw under pressure, and Cole Bishop's able to go up and get it with one hand, where it would have had to be a great throw anyway. Yeah. Like, that's supposed to be a wide open player, and you maybe coach guys to throw that away, but it's not going to throw it away. Like, you put that play in, so you throw a touchdown, and so it's a rough situation. But as Greg said, like, every single week, yeah. I like watching Spencer Rattler. He had a run today where he like put his foot in the ground and like made 2 Bills defenders fall down. I think Bernard was one of them.
Yes, and he didn't slide until late in the game. He started sliding. Someone must have talked to him in the locker room. I do want to say this game turned into something totally different than I expected it would be. Even from the jump, Josh Allen was 5 for 5 for 103 yards and a touchdown. In the start of this game, the Bills went up 14-7. I want to shout out a lesser heralded player, Jonas Sanker out of Virginia, the rookie safety who had 2 crucial pass breakups and also intercepted Josh Allen, like, all the way across the field, free safety, deep ball. He had an incredible game, and actually at that point, it completely swung. I know you don't think it's real, Patrick, but swung momentum because the Bills were sort of stuck in the mud at that point. And it wasn't until the third quarter when James Cook started running the ball and finding some really good blocking and some good creases, and then Josh Allen sort of then took matters into his own hands, that they actually kind of refound themselves in their personality, because they were rattled by this rookie safety who came in and made a couple of massive plays. Shout out to him. That's a big game.
Yeah, he's been good. High draft pick for them that at first wasn't playing a ton, and now with injuries is playing and playing well. And yeah, you mentioned James Cook. Most of his production between the tackles, that's kind of what they've been counting on more than anything in terms of their offense this year. Over a 63% success rate, 11 for 81 through the middle of the field. So the Bills ultimately win comfortably 31-19. Those are your two undefeated teams left after week 4, the Bills and the Eagles. Let's come back after the break. We'll talk about a few other great teams, including the Lions. And yes, we will talk a little bit about Dublin before I go to bed. It is currently 2:20 a.m.
Khalif Raymond back deep for Detroit. Punts away. Khalif, not a great punt. It's going to come up and field it at the 34. Makes the first man miss. There goes the 40. 45 to the 50. Leaf angling at the 40. To the 35, to the 30. To the 25. Sir. Say goodbye. Khalif Raymond to the house. Touchdown, Detroit Lions. Oh, baby, what a run back. And that started with him making the first man miss. Khalif with some magic out there, and the Lions extend their lead.
That Khalif Raymond is a hell of a player.
Yep.
Dan Miller on WXYT. That was a hell of a punt return because it was a difficult punt to actually catch and then control his body enough to not go out of bounds, make people miss all in one motion. The Lions, they find different ways to win. And on a day where if you just look at the box score, like the offense didn't put up a ton of yards, they still beat the Browns 34-10. Patrick, you watched this game closely. What was the most impressive part of this victory?
The Lions just a better team, a better prepared team. John Morton said coming into this week when asked about the Browns' run defense, well, they hadn't seen a run game like theirs. Could make the case that neither team had seen anything like the opposition. Because Detroit didn't run all over them, but they made several key plays to pull away. That Khalif Raymond punt return, it was a 10-point game in the fourth quarter. They made plays all over the field on defense in a rough Jerry Jeudy game. A near pick six, DJ Reed. Jeudy argues that, Reed was pulling him down. Jeudy goes down. Reed gets that, almost brings it all the way back. Led to a wide open Amon-Ra St. Brown touchdown. He had a couple in this game. The Browns started with a score. Random fact, the Lions have given up an opening drive touchdown on every single game this season. The Browns extended that on a pretty nice Flacco drive, which is going to lead to more people asking coaches about the importance of a fast start, which is like one of those things where I think we should just all get rid of. I don't understand why we ask it. Like the score is cumulative. It doesn't make any sense.
Because momentum is real.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because
that's why we
it
get
works
off
out. The Ravens scored first, and then the momentum got them the win today, obviously. We did have a moment that stood out to me today. Want to see if you guys think we can get Bryce Young off of the worst throw of the year thrown for right now, because Joe Flacco had one that was picked off by Kirby Joseph today, and I want you guys to take a look and tell me whether or not this is the worst throw of the year. You can say it was a miscommunication, but, it was still bad.
Flacco's going to work out of the gun. Lions show 5 across the front, now 4. Flacco, long count as he goes empty out of the backfield. There's the snap. Flacco back. Flacco looking, floating it down the left side. It is picked off by Kirby Joseph.
Oh, no.
There was not a Brown within anybody's sight down the left sideline. Flacco threw it up for grabs, and Kirby
So
ran
Joe
under
does
it.
the thing where, like, when you trip over something and people are looking at you and you're embarrassed and you look at the spot on the ground as if the turf monster had reached out and grabbed you. Flacco just picked a random hash mark and just looked at it after that. That was nasty. I think we got Bryce off the throne, Greg.
Well, I don't know if we want to give it away. We want to get the ratings up for the big worst throw of the year award ceremony at the end of the year. I think that is a very strong candidate. Bryce's was so unique, throwing it into the stands that, it's in the mix. But I feel good that maybe Bryce is no longer the favorite.
Structurally worse when the other team catches it, Greg.
But yeah, the Lions had a great plan. They were able to keep Myles Garrett off of the sack stat sheet today. Did have a few pressures, but this Browns team is going to have to figure out what some sort of offensive plan is. They have these defensive performances where they're in these games late until things kind of give way, and they got away with it with the Packers, but the Lions were just too strong, especially Amon-Ra St. Brown and his connection with Jared Goff, which is next level right now.
And the Browns had a lot of bites at the apple to try to make something happen. 14 offensive drives and just 10 points. I mean, that's the second fewest the entire slate this week. And that's crazy to me. The defense, to your point, really picked up this group. And I kind of like that because you have to be able to win in a lot of different ways. And we saw the John Morton game, last week, and this is very much a Kelvin Shepherd game. And this is these two coordinators and their respective units figuring out their personalities within that place and how this team can complement each other in a real way. And it's not like, they were playing a cakewalk team. The Browns have one of the better defenses in the NFL. And so to be able to be on the field that much, to be able to have that much time, that many drives, and still be so consistent throughout, to take the ball away, to get pressure. I just thought that was a really good sign for Detroit in stepping up when their offense needed them to do it.
Yeah, Aiden Hutchinson, 9 pressures in this game, 4 quarterback hits, 2 sacks.
He's
just
coming
a
back.
Monster.
He is back.
Yeah, performance. And the Browns defense, they had to face a lot of drives too. Detroit had 12 real drives in this game, and they didn't even crack 300 yards. They've pressured Goff 44% of the time. He didn't take a single sack. If you want to learn what makes Jared Goff, I think that's it right there. They still had a very high success rate. Even though he only had 165 yards when he threw the ball, it was ultimately pretty successful. So the Lions win a game that they absolutely should. The Browns get ready to come over and join me on the other side of the pond. They will be facing the Vikings next week. Let's go to a game that also didn't feature a lot of scoring by one of the teams. Let's go to Houston.
First down at the 18. Handoff, Woody, left side 15, 10, 5, dives into the end zone. His second touchdown of the day.
I will see your 2 sacks and I'll raise you 2 touchdowns. Take that, Vandermeer.
I feel like I need to know more what was going. Did Woody Marks possibly give up 2 sacks in pass protection? Did they have some sort of wager before the game? I don't know, but I really enjoyed everyone in Houston breathing a sigh of relief and enjoying football again. Texans win 26-0. And yes, that was Mark Vandermeer and Andre Ware on KILT. This game was not the blowout that it looks like in the final score. To start the fourth quarter, there had yet to be a play in the red zone. The score was 6-0 at that point. The very next play was actually the Texans' first play in the red zone. They scored on it, and after that, C.J. Stroud and the offense played much better. I actually thought the turning point, though, was earlier in that drive. There was a 2nd and 33 in this game. The first 3 quarters, burn the tapes. I mean, it was ugly passing game football. The running games were fine, but 2nd and 33, mistakes, penalties, they're backed up, and C.J. Stroud throws it to Nico Collins down the sideline for a dime. Nico beats L'Jarius Sneed, and it just seemed to open them up. They hit a 4th down after that. Woody Marks had a really good game. Chubb helped keep them on schedule. They forced a turnover on downs at one point there, but ultimately they just had a 4th quarter where they looked like the Texans. And just seeing C.J. Stroud, Patrick, flex, and Danielle Hunter, who's been quiet, have a big 4th quarter and celebrating. I do wonder, it's not momentum, but I do wonder if emotionally maybe just getting that baggage off of, their shoulders will help them play better football next week against your Ravens.
Yeah, winning helps. And I think we can see that coming in just in terms of the circumstances and the vibes for the 2 teams between the Texans and the Ravens. To see, especially the growth of Higgins, because I think they needed that. They need somebody to step up that's not Nico Collins in the receiving game, and there were a large volume of targets that went to Christian Kirk for the past couple of weeks that weren't successful, and to see Higgins get through, and you try to figure out how much of that is like this positive growth by Nick Caley and his Texans offensive unit, and how much of that is the Tennessee Titans and the struggles that they've had, where you go through, and other than like some great splash plays by Jeffrey Simmons, who again had one of the best reps I saw all day, there's just not a lot to speak of from this Titans defense going up against an offense that had done basically next to nothing all season long, and the Texans look like world beaters, especially late.
I don't trust like sudden anomalies.
Yeah.
And so like, for example, the Panthers last week, do not trust a sudden anomaly of a shutout like that when the data is showing us so much otherwise, right? But with this, I kind of make an exception sometimes when it happens in a game, when you can start to feel an entire like unit start to play. And I know listeners love when I use this word, more cohesively, and feel like they're on the same page, that there's a functionality and a direction and an identity with not just the offense overall, but everybody knows their job. Everybody is doing their job. I'm not saying it was perfect. It certainly wasn't, but especially with that spurt of scoring late in this game, it really did feel like a little cathartic. And you could see it in CJ Stroud on the sidelines and how he was interacting. And he just seemed lighter. Now, on the other hand, another bad day, unfortunately, and I don't want to say a bad day performance-wise necessarily, but another series of unfortunate events and bad vibes for Cam Ward, who has his incredible bright moments, and then they are losing these games, and he'll make mistakes too, and the team will make mistakes, and then he'll be about as depressed as it gets in the post game afterward.
I mean, if we keeping the buck right now, we ass. So we 0-4. We have, this point, we got nothing to lose. We dropped a quarter of our games, and we've yet to do anything. So we have to lock in, especially myself on the offensive line, from the defensive line, from the special teams to all three faces. We have to play together. We have not played together this year yet, and that's just something that, we want to preach about it every day. Every day we got to do better, and we're doing that, but it has to show up on Sundays. It hasn't showed up yet, but it got to show up next week.
This might sound like damning with faint praise, but I've never been more impressed by a rookie quarterback on an offense that is playing like ass. And to that point, let's actually watch, I think was the fourth play of the entire game, a new throw of the year nominee, Cam Ward.
Downs here with two tight ends, and Ward under duress from Anderson, slips away from him, slings it downfield, and it's caught at the 30-yard line by Alec Iamaner.
And this is what Cam Ward does. He has had at least one special play every week. Will Anderson doesn't fall for it. Ward just able to get past him. And again, he points that direction and then throws it across his body. I feel like he's done this every game so far. It's like he's out in the schoolyard. He points to Iamaner, hey, go left, Alec, and he hits him.
That was our friend Ross Tucker. That was almost a carbon copy of the throw of the year nominee, which I think will stay at the podium. I don't know if that one quite gets there, but I do love any play where you can make Will Anderson fall on the ground like that, run away from him, and throw across his body. He has played well, even in these games where it really looks like he didn't play well. And I think his interception in this game was kind of like a typical play. He throws it sidearm. It is a little inaccurate, but ultimately his receiver gets two hands on the ball. It gets deflected up. He actually hasn't had that many big mistakes, but the offensive line, no surprise, really struggled against Houston. And as anomalous, to use your word, Jourdan, as the final score was, the Houston Texans defense playing this well was not out of the ordinary at all. So huge win for the Texans to get to 1-3, and they have the Ravens next week in a game where one of those teams that was in the divisional round last year will fall to 1-4. All right, we've done enough preamble. Let's get to my final game I'll be part of discussing on this show, one that I flew all the way over for. Yes, let's go to Dublin for the first time.
Rodgers in the gun, single back in alongside him, one receiver left Two receivers to the right, heavy line with guess who? Darnell Washington there. Ben Skoranek goes in motion, fakes the handoff to Gainwell over the middle. DK Metcalf out to the 40, 45, 50, 45, 40, 35, 30. He's got a block ahead of him to Calvin Austin. Down to the 10, down to the 5. Touchdown! DK Metcalf, absolutely sensational for the big man they brought in from Seattle. And a second touchdown for the Pittsburgh Steelers. This crowd has gone absolutely wild.
You wanted a Steelers moment in Dublin? You got one. DK Metcalf over the middle. Multiple Vikings with a chance to tackle him, except they didn't have a chance because none of them have the speed of DK Metcalf.
Greg!
Yes, that was my buddy, Will Gavin, on TalkSport with someone who was screaming way too loud.
You want a Steelers moment?
Like
I love when he goes full Greg.
in my ears throughout that game was so just cacophonous. Is that a word? I don't know. Now I'm going absolutely
Cacophonous.
crazy.
Yeah.
Cacophonous.
Read a book.
That I couldn't hear myself think. Yes, the Steelers get it done in a winding, weird game, 24-21. They gave us plenty of moments, but that was my favorite one. We could go back through, everything that happened late in this game, and there was a lot of interesting coaching decisions. But I do go back when I think about like why they won this game to some personnel choices, and I'll get to like my thoughts about the Dublin game experience and all that stuff, but they decided to go out there today and just play big boy football, and it really worked. Like they had Darnell Washington on the field almost every snap.
Yeah.
Whereas before he was the number 3 tight end. Today he actually had more snaps than the other 3 tight ends combined. They also had a man who I don't think got a lot of pop before today, Spencer Anderson, on the field far more than any of the other 3 tight ends. That was essentially a 6th offensive lineman. Most plays they had 7 either offensive linemen or tight end, some combination of either 3 tight ends on the field, 7 offensive linemen on the field.
Yeah.
And they pushed the Vikings around. It was very apparent watching it, from the broadcast booth, just how they physically dominated them. Their success rate was through the roof. It was just a lot of Kenny Gainwell for 5, 6, 7 yards. And ultimately, I think that is why they won the game, even more than the fact that Carson Wentz was in it, more than the fact that Aaron Rodgers, had a couple of big plays. I think they just pushed the Steelers around.
I love it. And I caught myself thinking multiple times this morning, and as I had this game on and I was getting ready to come in here into the studio today, is Gainwell not the best running back name ever?
Oh,
Gainwell?
Yeah. And
I mean,
you throw the first name in there. I've called him Kenny G for years. The music was beautiful today. In absence of Jalen Warren, the Steelers ground game, and Greg mentioned Darnell Washington and the way that things were blocked up. It was cohesive. They got the ball out of Rodgers' hands quickly early on to the point where, you worry about how you react to what Flores and the Vikings are going to do. The Steelers really dictated over the course of the game. And then, made plays down the stretch, like a Peyton Wilson running down Jourdan Addison, essentially saving about a minute of game time in what could have been clutch. And people are like, well, Jourdan Addison, he's coming back. No, like Peyton Wilson, the speed that he ran in this game, 22.48 miles an hour, he could have caught DK from behind on DK's long touchdown. Like that effort was spectacular, but I don't want to overstate the effort. He's a fast player who runs fast, and we tend to overstate effort depending on how the player looks. But yeah, he's exceedingly fast, and they made, like, Ben Skoranek was out there making plays. Like, guys were doing
vintage.
Yeah, that's all Ben Skoranek does: win Super Bowls and make big plays.
Yes.
And yeah, this is the Steelers team we were promised.
Yeah.
That we felt like we were in search of for the first few weeks.
Even further than that, too, Patrick, it's like what Greg mentioned as well. This is like finally we're seeing this is how Aaron Rodgers wants to play. There were a couple of explosives, obviously, but he mostly got the ball out quick. And it's also what Arthur Smith wants to play. So it's like this marriage that we're finally seeing because he's loaded up in these heavy personnels. And to your point about dictating to the Flores defense, in part, it's because you are in such heavy personnel the entire time. And it does not bode well for a lot of the different coverage changes and formation changes and things that usually are dictated to you by that defense. And it's not the only reason, but it's a part of it. When you load up in personnel like that, it is just hard to regain the mathematical leverage on the other side. And not a lot of teams have the players to be able to do this. And so we finally saw maximizing the roster on this offense after a few weeks of catching little glimpses here and there, a 2-point conversion earlier in the season to Darnell Washington, where you're like, why don't you just do that every single time? These kinds of things were so clear.
They've had the formations. I just don't think they've had the right personnel on the field. Like Washington being there live, it was really so noticeable how he's lining up in a completely different spot every time. Yeah. He's in motion a lot as like a 270-pound guy. He's a fullback. He's a tight end. He's offset. He's everything. And I think he's an all-pro type of player, like a unicorn type of player, if they can maximize him. And today, I think you saw it. And Freiermuth and Jonnu Smith were just much less big deals today. You mentioned Rodgers getting rid of the ball quickly. They blitzed quite a bit in this game, and he still had a 2.17 time to throw. And he got hit like 3 times. And other than that, he just got rid of the ball. And it wasn't like amazing, but it was more than good enough. And you mentioned that Peyton Wilson like rundown. So that's late in the game during a really inspired fourth quarter comeback by Carson Wentz that was helped out by some decisions, by a fourth down fail by Pittsburgh. And that was the fastest any linebacker has run in the NFL in almost 10 years, which is wild.
He's trying the hardest, right?
Just so much effort.
It's funny. It's funny because Carson Wentz got so much credit last week, and he's going to get so much blame this week. And I was like, he didn't play any different. If anything, I thought he maybe showed a little more today, where he took about 13 or 14 quarterback hits and was down 24-6 to start the fourth quarter and had them in position at the end of the game to possibly go win it. He was fine. There was a couple deflected interceptions, which I don't think you could totally put on him, at least not one of them, especially. Like, he was game, but ultimately the Steelers, like, Arthur Smith outcoached Brian Flores, and the Steelers were tougher than the Vikings on this day. Don't know if that would happen every week, but they were absolutely tougher. It's got to give them ideas of like, can we replicate this? Because our defense, we know, can play better overall, and they did today.
Yeah, and shout out, it was nice to hear Will Gavin, Greg, on the call. Will, I know you're listening. Thank you very much. Sorry for what I said earlier this season about redheads.
Yes, he actually mentioned that to me in person. He said he was a little disappointed that you were afraid that the redheads were taking. Oh, what the hell? Let's listen to a redhead highlight.
Yeah.
Yes, Carson Wentz. They thought the game was over, that we were going to send a dud over to Dublin. Oh, it was kind of a fun 24-6, but it was 24-6. But Carson Wentz wouldn't hear it.
Wentz in the gun. It's so loud here in Croke Park. I can barely hear myself think. Carson Wentz goes to hand it off to Jourdan Mason. Instead rolls out. He's got space. Naked boot. Jalen Naylor. Touchdown, Minnesota Vikings. 2:08 remaining on the rollout. Naylor gets in the end zone. And that is the key thing. It was before the 2-minute warning.
Never tell Carson Wentz that the game is over. It's alive. Never tell him the play is over. His first read was taken away there. Stayed calm, got the score.
I love it. Yay.
Gotta get Greg on more calls. What are you talking about?
I love it. I'm going to go. I want to listen to the whole thing. I'm going to go back.
I had a great time. They're showing a picture. If you're watching on YouTube, this is a reason not to, but you can also see my face uncomfortably close to the camera as we approach 3 a.m. and I have a new setup. But yes, that was me and Will Gavin, and Simon Clancy was also there with me in the booth. So I apologize to Simon for not picking any of his calls. He did an incredible job, and it was an absolute thrill and a huge win for the Steelers, who I think have a chance to get better, and they're 3-1 already. The Vikings fall to 2-2. They'll be staying overseas going over to England next week, like myself. So the game atmosphere, guys, was like, it was incredible walking to the game. I'm in downtown Dublin. I don't think they call it downtown here, but it was about a 45-minute walk to the game, and just like being part of an entire city that really embraced this game in a way that I don't think maybe a city the size of London even possibly could. Like, it really felt like a Super Bowl in a city like New Orleans. And I just think there's a level of fandom here, not only the intense fans, because we have those in pockets all over the world, but I think the level of casual fandom here is also pretty high, where everyone I ran into had a pretty good knowledge of just the basics of what's going on with the NFL, and so grateful to be here. And then, walking through like the Trinity College campus, where, I was getting my Sally Rooney on, if you're a Sally Rooney head out there, and walking in, and the pregame with, seeing Bill Murray walk by on the field and everything. The city just was kind of on fire the last couple of days. And I was really glad to see the game live up to that. And I don't know what it looked like on TV, but the atmosphere was really awesome. Like, when they played Renegade, it felt like you were in Pittsburgh, and the sound, more than any international game I've been at, felt like a real home game. And I thought they actually gave the Steelers an advantage. You saw the Vikings kind of fritzing out late in the fourth quarter, where they were struggling to like play fast. And I really thought the crowd noise was a big part of that. So I think all the Steelers fans that came over here, I think there were a lot more Americans at this game also than any other game I had been to before over here. How did it look on TV?
It looks great. All the energy and intensity that we hear on the call, and like you guys dealing with the noise, like that came through on the broadcast. It's just, and seeing the crowd shots and the reaction shots of everything, that feeling that you had walking through Dublin kind of came through in the screen, in that those folks appreciated having that opportunity to be at the first ever game, and the first ever game delivering in that way. It was a payoff for all parties involved. Even the Minnesota Vikings fans who made the trip didn't leave with a win, but to be there in that moment, worth it for everybody involved. And what a great opportunity for folks in Dublin and for us.
There was a terrible towel tifo that looked super cool on TV. I gotta tell you, just unfurled a massive terrible towel through a massive portion of the crowd, like they do at non-American football games, soccer games. And it was cool, and just felt like such a party. And it felt like I really could tell, because you can hear the ebb and swell of the crowd, even if it's muted a little bit when you're watching on the TV broadcast. And you could tell this is an educated group of football people, like, and a lot of these overseas games are certainly that way, and becoming more and more so, I think, every year. And it's just cool because, I mean, man, what a vibe. Is it true? I didn't hear it myself. Is it, they were playing the Cranberries too?
Zombie was like an incredible
I would have
sing-along.
run through a freaking wall if I heard that. That's so cool. That is so sick. Oh my God.
Yeah, like they went big for Sweet Caroline too, but I've seen that before. But also that was special. But hearing Zombie and the whole crowd going wild for Zombie, and then actually the moment I will remember, and this is bizarre and is probably just unique to me of the entire week, was the second we finished like a brief post-game show, and I took off the headsets. Like, the second that happened, they started playing Dreams by the Cranberries, which I referred to off the top, which is one of my favorite songs. And for some reason, because I saw it this year in a movie, I've been playing nonstop to my family when they least want it and least suspect it in the car, as loud as possible, and it makes them go absolutely crazy. And so taking the headset off and just hearing Dreams come on at that moment is something I will never forget. And I won't forget the fans here. We did an event on Friday night, and I'll wrap this up with this, with Michael McQuaid, who hosts the Pro Football Ireland show and was on Virgin TV today. And for all these fans and media members and guys here, they've been trying to lift up the NFL on their own while they're like doing other things. You know, there's not an ecosystem here. And it was really a culmination, I think, for all the diehard fans and these media members to get the game here and to see it embraced. And after Colleen and I did about a half hour of their show where they had a lot of ex-players, a very drunk Brett Kiesel on the stage, like really drunk.
Good for him.
Me and Colleen got off. There was still more show to go. And a lot of the people watching came out with us and one by one just kind of told us their stories and how much that around the NFL had meant to them back in the day, and that helped them become fans, and just what the game means to them in different ways. And to everyone that came up, it meant a ton to me. And I think the entire week meant a ton to the league. And Roger Goodell already said it, like they're planning to come back. We'll see if it's in 2026, but he said that before there even was a game and got to enjoy it all. So the idea is to have more of these international games, and we know that we will be here in Dublin. And I'm sure I forgot something here, but I do want to thank our boss Matt Schneider for helping out, and everyone back home, obviously, for making this happen, and the people at TalkSport. And with that, it's time to go to bed.
Get some rest, Greg.
You're a champ.
All right. So what we're going to do here, we're going to take a break. And when you come back on the other side, you're going to get to hear the beautiful vocal stylings of Nick Shook, who's going to wrap up this show.
Will he also be as close to the camera as you are right now?
No, he will be further away, and he will look much more manly.
Play fake, and May rolling to his left, looking downfield. He's going to dump it off for Hunter Henry. Running room to the 20, 15, 10, 5 to the end zone. Touchdown, Patriots.
Take what the defense gives you, and you will be fine playing the quarterback position.
Drake May was taking what the defense gave him and then some in a romp for the Patriots. 42-13 over the Carolina Panthers. That was Bob Sochi and, of course, Scott Zolak on WBZ. The Patriots building on what they couldn't get done last week against the Steelers by rolling through the Panthers. After giving up 6 points to start, they score 42 unanswered until garbage time and cruise into week 5 coming off of a big one, guys. What'd you think about this one? Because this was a fantastic performance for Drake May, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I thought that in every phase they looked like a more complete team. I mean, you could kind of see, despite last week with all the turnovers that the Patriots had, you could still see pieces coming together, like the concepts of the plan kind of coming together. And then this week, and yes, it was against the Panthers, and we talked earlier in the show, Nick, about how this was very animalic last week, what the Panthers were able to do to the Falcons, because data tells us otherwise. But it also was, to me, you could see all of the theory behind everything they were doing. They seemed more complete as a complete team, offense, defense, special teams, than I think we've seen from the Patriots so far this season as they rebuild.
And positive news for the Panthers. It wasn't a world-beating performance, but once again, they didn't get run all over for the 3rd consecutive week. Signs of growth there, but Drake May, 14 of 17, 203 yards. They could do seemingly nothing to bother him. He almost had a perfect passer rating, completed 82% of his passes. Meanwhile, the Panthers offense, other than that 6 points and then the missed extra point, I guess you could say that the missed extra point caused a collapse in momentum that ultimately sent the game spiraling to 42 unanswered points because Bryce finished 18 of 30. There were several moments where he and T-Mac couldn't quite link up. Bryce honestly missed those throws. I'm not going to say that they couldn't link up because there were some whiffs from Bryce. There were some whiffs on the blocking side of things, and just a dominant performance where I was thinking the Patriots hadn't done anything as impressive as what the Panthers did last week. Well, now they did. And now the transitive property says that they're 72 points better than the Atlanta Falcons.
Oh my God.
Evidently, comes off of them pitching a 30-0 shutout, and then they get absolutely dominated the next week. But you're right. It was a complete victory by the Patriots. It came in all three phases. It started with the Jones punt return for 87 yards.
Mm-hmm.
Marcus Jones just cuts through the punt coverage. He almost takes another one back. He takes it 61 yards and barely gets tripped up by the punter. He would have had 2 punt return touchdowns. And that's in the third phase of the game. Extremely efficient offensively. May dotting the field with accurate passes, leaning on Hunter Henry. Finally hooking up with Stephon Diggs for the first time. They went 6 for 101. That felt good to see as somebody who's understood their struggles at times. And you're right, they didn't have to run all over them because they were just so efficient. It didn't matter. They lost time of possession by 11 minutes and dominated this game. That's how one-sided it was. And for the first time, I think, too, and Jourdan, you mentioned this, and it's a great point. You saw pieces of it before, right? This was the first time in this very short Mike Vrabel era so far, the first month, in which I felt like the Patriots adopted Mike Vrabel's identity.
Yeah.
Because they were aggressive on defense. They were stifling. Bryce looked very uncomfortable. You talked about the blocking not working. I felt like they were just disjointed after that first touchdown drive and never really found it again. And I think that's exactly what Mike Vrabel intends to do with his defense. Now, it doesn't show up in the pressure numbers, but if you watch the game, you can see an uncomfortable Bryce, and that's created by Mike Vrabel's defense. So a resounding victory for the Patriots.
Yeah, we were waiting to see what Vrabel's identity was going to be. I think we feel like we know it based on like his presence and his history and the way that they're trying to build this team and some of the moves he's been very aggressive about making and plugging in certain players and the draft that he just went out and executed and certainly, but actually putting it on the field and seeing it. And seeing what I think Patriots fans can take away from as like the beginnings of an identity, right? I'm not going to, I even wrote about this earlier today. I'm not going to put any expectations on the Patriots fans. I think that's okay. Just float for a year, just vibe, right? But I think it's all gravy when you don't have expectations and you need to see these building blocks. You can't take these giant leaps before you take the smaller steps. And over the last couple of weeks, that's very much what I've seen from this team and certainly putting it together in a big way today.
Yeah, absolutely. Now we're going to move on to another place here where the smaller steps were a little more painful, a little sloppier, not quite a rack fight, but it was a thrilling finish. We go to Vegas.
Awaiting the snap. It's good. Snap is good. It's blocked. Bears blocked the kick. They blocked the field goal on 4th and 3 with 32 seconds to go in the game. The Bears blocked the kick. It might be Josh Blackwell. Got to see the replay to make sure, but the Bears are celebrating. They are going to sneak out of Allegiant Stadium with a 25-24 win.
Sneak out is exactly how anybody would describe this Bears victory. The Bears take down the Raiders 25-24 at Allegiant Stadium. A comeback victory for Chicago. Jeff Joniak and Tom Thayer on the call on WMVP. Chicago, couple of wins in a row, and for the first time, they were pushed up against the wall, and they came through in the clutch with Caleb Williams leading the go-ahead touchdown drive and the special teams unit finishing it off.
The performance that jumped out to me was the veteran Kevin Byard taking us back to his days as a Tennessee Titan, where on multiple plays, he's lined up in the middle of the field as a middle of the field safety, does not move. Geno Smith must have been assuming that Kevin Byard was going to go somewhere on both of these plays, because Byard moved a total of 5 yards on these and intercepted Geno Smith, a part of Geno's 3 interceptions that, were part of the way to doom the Raiders. Positive sign. We got Ashton Genty some life in the run game. So Chip Kelly is off of my bad list as we finally got Ashton Genty, not just involved in the run game, but the pass game too. And he showed you why he was worth that top 10 pick.
Yeah, 3 touchdowns for Ashton Genty, and my quick math is telling me close to 160 scrimmage yards. I can't do math that fast. So 138 and 17. Someone else do that for me. But yeah, it was refreshing to see this. We knew they had it in them, right? That's why we were just grabbing them by the shoulders and shaking them, because we're like, we know you have this in you, despite the fact that your offensive line is having just such a woeful start to the season, and Geno Smith is under pressure all the time. And man, I hate it for him. I'm curious, Nick, I did not have eyes on the game for most of this game. I'm curious, how did Geno play? Because the stat line is awful, but sometimes, a bad bounce here, a bad bounce there. Obviously, they did not get Brock Bowers again as involved as would be actually helping this team with easy outlets and catch and run plays. What was the Geno Smith situation today? What was the issue?
The Geno Smith situation started with the worst possible outcomes, which was that interception. And it's funny that you mentioned that, Patrick, that he didn't move, because Adam Archuleta's on the broadcast and he's stunned. He's like, they're watching the second interception. And he's like, that's the same interception he threw earlier. Like, he didn't see him again. So it was about as bad as you could expect. It was a sloppy game by both sides, and the Raiders seemed to be able to move the ball a little bit easier early in this game, but they were undercut by Geno's interceptions, which is what made Genty's performance so valuable, so essential to the Raiders even being in this game and having a lead in the fourth quarter, because without him, they weren't really doing much of anything. Brock Bowers, like you said, they didn't get him as involved. When they did get him involved, he still doesn't look 100% with that knee. You lose that weapon, your offense is going to be limited, and they were definitely limited, but they had done enough. And for the first time all season, this Raiders defense could actually get stops. They were keeping them in the game while Geno was working through his struggles. By the time he kind of found himself, he was still missing some throws here and there, especially in key spots. And the sequence at the end there, the way they handled it conservatively, just kind of spoke to their offensive struggles overall. But it was the first time where I felt like their defense played better than their offense this season. And ultimately, the special teams doesn't come through. They don't make the field goal, and they lose a heartbreaker.
Yeah, Max Crosby put a lot on his shoulders this game. The Raiders highlights package that is available is a lot of defense, and it's a lot of Max Crosby trying to do so much, as we kind of feared with some of the moves that they made in the offseason and didn't make in the offseason. And, you worried about like the weight-bearing walls on this team and whether or not there was going to be enough, especially on defense, support around. And I think overall, we've seen a couple of really good games from this Raiders defense and surprisingly over expectation of what I think the roster looks like and what this could be. The problem is it's inconsistent. And then when this happens on the other side and there's turnovers and all of that stuff, you're just putting everyone in a bad spot. Yeah,
the target share for Trey Tucker, just 2. After the breakout performance against the Washington Commanders, where you would hope that these Geno bad games don't continue to stack. But clearly there was an issue. And to give Kevin Byard the credit on the second interception, he did take a couple of steps back to where Geno might have thought he was going deep. But again, it was just a couple of steps. But I understand there's a lot of moving pieces, and, the Bears needed to make plays on defense, like big splash plays on defense, because this unit doesn't seem to be at this point capable of making this long, sustained defensive success over play in and play out, because the Raiders had done nothing in the run game all season long, and Asher Genty looked like he was going through the college football once again.
155 scrimmage yards.
There it is. There's the math.
Yes. Math.
We added 17.
Math, yeah.
I did it.
It's a weird number to add.
It was super valuable. It is. It's always hard, right? Carry the 2, the 1. It was, I have to give Geno a little bit of credit here, because the third pick he threw was a great play by Tyreek Stevenson. It really wasn't as much on Geno. But for fans who prefer quarterbacks with, accurate showings, one guy in Atlanta needed a bounce back. This is a transition.
That's a freaking pro right there.
So let's head to Atlanta. Let's check out what Michael Penix did with the Falcons.
Pistol formation with Robinson. Give it to him. Pajan with the mustard.
Oh, nice.
Touchdown.
The mustard. You've been waiting for that one. I like it. Look at these jump cuts. Look at the mustard on these jump cuts. He is just jumping all over the place.
Bijan Robinson powers the Falcons to a big bounce back performance. And if you were a fan of explosives, you got plenty here from Atlanta, because Michael Penix teamed up with Drake London. He teamed up with Bijan. He teamed up with Kyle Pitts. They're throwing the ball all over the yard as the Falcons take down the Commanders 34-27. Of course, that's Ian Eagle and J.J. Watt on the call. And when Greg messaged me, what's a good call from that game, I thought, God, the mustard call by Ian Eagle was so good. With the mustard, all the condiments on those jump cuts into that end zone. Bijan has a great day. Has a performance kind of similar to Ashton Genty, actually. And the Falcons rolled to a much-needed victory over a Commanders team that, second game without Jaden Daniels, didn't have Terry McLaurin out there, just felt like they couldn't keep up today.
Yeah, there was moments where you got worried about the Falcons performing a falconing late in this game, where Marcus Mariota hit Deebo Samuel on about a 27-yard, I believe, touchdown pass that got them within striking distance, but the Falcons just kept scoring in the fourth quarter. There was a Tyler Algier touchdown run after Bijan got all saucy in the end zone. And the great part about that call from Ian Eagle was Bijan, he scores, Mike Samerstill is hanging on to his ankles. He spins into the end zone, goes down, and then pushes himself up with one hand while he's holding the ball in the other hand, right as Ian Eagle is saying the mustard as well.
So sick.
It just perfectly encapsulates how explosive and how incredible of a football player Bijan can be when he gets the ball in space, when he gets the ball without space, and really a bounce back game, as you mentioned, Shook, from Michael Penix Jr. And the Falcons can just kind of wash away. And considering the way that the Panthers played on Sunday, say that was just one of those weird games where you just burn the tape because they played much better against Washington today.
Yeah, it felt like folks were really hard on Penix last week. Understandably so. It was probably the worst game of his career. And it felt so good to see him come out and not just dot the field with accurate passes, but sling it. I mean, he's taking shots down the left sideline. There was a sequence where he took like 2 or 3 shots in a row. One gets called back because of a penalty. They go right after it again. He's connecting with Drake London repeatedly. This offense feels like it has life, but it does bum me out because they did have a firing on their staff this week. They fired receivers coach Ike Hilliard, and everyone's like, well, they fired their receivers coach. Now everything must be fixed, without maybe considering that this is also a Washington defense that hasn't quite been the best, and for another week looked a little slow at times.
Yeah, slow and concerning late too, right? Like it just sometimes things just seem to fall apart and compound for this group. And it's obviously well coached, but sometimes you just wonder, okay, are there enough players on this defense? Are there enough young players on this defense? And I think that's just going to keep coming up for the Commanders. And it was a similar question that was asked last year. This Michael Penix game reminded me a lot of the Michael Penix games we watched when he was at Washington. Some of the throws he would make, you want to talk about mustard. I mean, the mustard and the relish on some of those passes that he had. I mean, like, I always believed in him. Let me put that on the record right now. It is interesting. This is also circulating. This is a very good Zach Robinson tape game.
Ooh.
The same day that our own Ian Rappaport was reporting that Zach Robinson may be on the short list for that Oklahoma State job. Obviously, he played there previously. So it's a good first look at Zach Robinson for anyone who is curious. And certainly, in my opinion, I always think that moving down to the field helps a coordinator because you want to be able to talk to your quarterback who and have him talk back to you, which you can't actually have that happen when you're just talking at him in the headset, and he can only respond with hand signals and is talking to different support coaches versus directly to the guy who is calling the plays for him. And I don't know if this was the magical fix. I tend to think that last week was just a big anomaly. Like I've said ad nauseum throughout the course of this show, not to keep throwing shade at the Panthers, whom I love dearly and I want better for. And I just think that this is the Michael Penix Falcons. This is the cast of skill players that we are used to seeing, or that we expect to see from this group. And really, I think more indicative of what their identity is than what they showed last week.
Yeah, I think it also reinforces the fact that 1 month into the NFL season, a lot of us don't know who the hell a lot of these teams are. Because let's think about the Falcons over the last 3 weeks. They get the resounding victory over the Vikings in primetime, right? And then they get absolutely dominated by the Panthers in their worst showing of the year. And then they come back out and look like the team that we thought they were, that maybe they looked more like way back in week 1. Mm-hmm. They've been a different team identity-wise in the way they've gone about these games every week. And at minimum, it's encouraging to see an opposing defense choose to play zone 75% of the time and dare Michael Penix to pick them apart. And then he largely picks them apart with the assistance of one of the best running backs in the NFL in Bijan Robinson. So very encouraging for them. A good way to end the month, 2-2 for the Falcons, and a good way for us to end this part of the show. We say goodbye to Patrick. This still feels weird for me being in the shoe saying goodbye to you, in this seat saying goodbye to you. But me and Jourdan are coming back for Sunday Night Football.
We
so
are.
Let's go do it.
Yeah, enjoy Sunday Night Football, everybody.
Woohoo!
Of 34 yards on the right hash. The kick's away from 34. It's good, and the game ends in a tie.
Yeah.
They tie at 40.
And both teams are going off like they lost the game. There was no excitement on either side.
Well, they're exhausted.
Went through,
they're exhausted too. But
wow.
You're right. You're right. A tie feels like a loss after all of that.
Oh, that was Brad Sham, the Sham God, and Babe Laufenberg on KRLD on the call. I am in the power chair. Nick Shook is with me. After all the drama, Nick, wow, nice flex there. After all the drama, all the madness, a back and forth second half with some truly wild moments between the Green Bay Packers and the Dallas Cowboys, all the suspense leading up to the Micah Parsons quote-unquote revenge game, or the vindication for Jerry Jones after the Packers last played heartbreakers to Dallas, and we end in a tie, 40-40 in overtime. Nick, what the hell did we just watch?
For those who watch on YouTube, which like and subscribe as always, you probably
so you could see Nick Shook's guns just now. He just hit the flex. Yeah.
That's the cherry on top. That's the bonus. You probably saw all the facial expressions of those slowly walking toward midfield, unsure of what to do. Like, how do I react here? Micah Parsons' eyes darting around as if he's just entirely uncomfortable because there was no resolution to this game. The resolution was a tie. And I'll avoid all the cliche sayings that describe a tie, but I will tell you that this game deserved better than a tie, and yet at the same time, perhaps it didn't, because it turned into absolute chaos in the fourth quarter. Here we go, Jourdan. Let's run down some possessions. We'll start with the first touchdown of the fourth quarter. That's Josh Jacobs with an 18-yard touchdown run. That gave the Packers a 27-23 lead. But not to be outdone, the Cowboys would respond with a Javonte Williams touchdown run. And then they would just go in order, back and forth, all the way to overtime. And when the Cowboys get inside the 5, they can't punch it in for a touchdown. They settle for a field goal. And the only thing that's crazier than that is Jordan Love just barely having enough time left in the clock after an incomplete pass toward the end zone for Brandon McManus to come out and hit the game-tying field goal, and sending us all home just feeling like, what did we just watch?
Yeah, the game that they kind of deserved after the first half, but the game that we felt like we didn't get after watching the second half. You know, it felt like after how wild the second half of this game got, we went into overtime, you know, taking the listener back a little bit. That Brandon McManus 53-yard field goal tied it up 37-all at the end of regulation. And, of course, Dallas gets the ball first here after Green Bay wins the kick. The new overtime rules, it can be debated. It's a little bit of an advantage maybe to get the ball second, because then depending on whether the opponent hit a field goal or a touchdown, you now know exactly what you need. Yeah, to win the game. So I want to talk about this wild sequence because on the third down of Dallas's possession, Dak Prescott first hits a wide open George Pickens, wide open for some reason, like he was the entire second half, and many players were the entire second half, down the sideline for 22 yards, and 2 plays later, one of the best throws. The kids are in charge of the show today, Nick, so I think we should submit this here as one of the throws of the year. Dak Prescott under pressure hits a wild fadeaway throw to Jalen Tolbert, who tiptoes to stay in bounds, makes the catch, falling sideways, somehow defying the laws of physics and gravity. And then Micah Parsons prevents a Dak Prescott scrambling touchdown. So they depend on Brandon Aubrey's leg on that first possession to go up 40-37. The Micah Parsons revenge game was probably not how Micah Parsons himself expected it to go. But if he does not prevent that touchdown at the end of the game, then we're probably having having a very different conversation right now, Nick.
Yeah, and it came at a perfect time, really, because it was right about the same time where everybody watching was all coming to the same conclusion of, wow, for being an all-world edge rusher, Micah Parsons certainly isn't stopping the Cowboys' offense from moving the ball down the field right now. They're doing it with relative ease. Oh, wait, there's a nearly clear path to the end zone for Dak Prescott to play hero and score a touchdown. Who catches him from behind? One of the few guys on the planet who has the speed and the size to be able to catch him from behind, bring him down, and prevent that touchdown. That was his, I guess, shining moment. He had another moment in the fourth quarter there where he was rushing off the edge, and Tyler Smith just barely dives out to kind of get him in the hip and prevent him from what would have been a strip sack of Dak Prescott, and probably could have wrecked the entire flow of this game and may have led to a Packers victory. Instead, that's Micah Parsons' best moment, and it is a great moment. It's just there's a little bit of a shadow cast over it because it didn't lead to a win or a loss, so we all just walk away feeling as if we didn't get a real resolution. But it was good for him, and it was also a great counterpunch in the moment to what was a phenomenal play that you just described, that it was the throw that Dak is rolling to the right, and he just basically like throws his whole body into it and falls forward as he's throwing it, and then immediately gets hit right when the ball is released and goes backward. It's just one of those like spectacular plays that only a few quarterbacks on the planet can do, and Dak Prescott has the arm to get that done. And this game was full of plays like that, but that was one of the ones that we'll remember the most.
Yeah, I thought he was unbelievable. I thought Dak Prescott was unbelievable tonight. I thought that Jourdan Love was mostly very good. A couple of rough spots here and there. Romeo Doubs finished this game with a hat trick. Romeo, therefore art thou Romeo. He found him 3 times in the end zone, including for a pretty clutch situation, a go-ahead touchdown. Josh Jacobs got running in the second half. You know, a wise man, Les Snead, once told me, when you're ever running into adversity, just hit duo and run through the roadblocks. I find that to be words of wisdom, Nick. That's exactly what the Packers did to start getting this ball game rolling a little bit. And, of course, the Cowboys responded. In overtime, though, Green Bay had a chance to respond, and there was some late confusion and trouble getting to the line of scrimmage on a 3rd and 14, and really the only option Jourdan Love had was basically to rip a ball into the end zone. At that point, kind of the safest play to hit to try to give yourself the touchdown shot, but also sort of, quote unquote, protecting the ball in a way, because if it flies out the back of the end zone, the clock stops, and that's great. And so, you know, there's a player sort of in the area. He almost makes the throw, doesn't. 1 second left on the clock, and of course, now we're all kind of like, what the heck? That's great.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that sequence itself, I felt like the Packers were being just a little too nonchalant, a little too casual with the clock. They needed to get on the ball earlier, about 2 plays earlier. They do get a couple more plays off, and then they come down to that, and there's a little bit of confusion. And I'm thinking at that point, clock it. At least give yourself time to figure out what you want to do and get organized. Instead, they have this very slow, like, muddle huddle, and then they snap the ball. And I'm just sitting on my hands in my head. Like, I'm just like, oh, my God, please stop. Like, throw the ball. Get rid of it. You're going to run out of time. So as soon as the ball deflects off the defender, I look at the clock, and I swear there's barely 1 second. If this was like an NBA clock or a hockey clock,
it's rounded up. It's rounded up. Yeah.
This is one of those situations in the NBA where there's 2 tenths left, and all you can do is tip the ball in, or that's the only thing that's legal in the following play, because there was like no time left. There was less than a second there, and of course, I guess fortunately for Packers fans, they avoid the loss because it was just enough time to get a field goal off. But my God, I did not need that anxiety spike on a Sunday night.
Yeah, and, you know, I think plenty of compliments to go around, especially if you're extrapolating the second half and overtime for both of these offenses. Still major concerns, new concerns about the Packers defense, I think, or newer concerns, because minus CeeDee Lamb, the Cowboys receivers were just finding openings all over the field. Dak Prescott was unconscious for the second half of this game, and in overtime did everything he needed to do to try to get his team to win, other than maybe high step over Micah Parsons' outstretched hand there at the end. Him and Brian Schottenheimer, to me, Nick, I think they got something here, because I loved the game that Schotty called. I mean, I hope that he stays this way when there are actual expectations on the Dallas Cowboys season, which I would say is fair that they did not enter the year post-Parsons trade with many. But once there are expectations on this offense, I want to see Schotty still call a game this free, this smart. The thing, you know, Josh Jacobs on the Packers side and running duo and inside runs got the Packers going. Okay, well, doing all kinds of weird stuff in the run game with Clayton Adams and all of the, you know, as the OC and getting that run plan, that mix of power and then misdirection with some of the reverses, and the receivers minus CeeDee Lamb on the sideline really stepped up. I just think this, even if it's a tie, you got to feel really good about this if you're a Cowboys fan, and I think maybe adequately concerned if you're a Packers fan because of what you saw from the defense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think both things can be true. The Packers ran into an offense that is performing at a high level. Like they have been since week 1, really. Save for the second half slowdown in week 1 against the Eagles. This has been a team that's going to need to be an offensive team in the Cowboys. That's the only way they can win these games. Now, they hit a bit of a rut last week when they played the Bears and they didn't have CeeDee Lamb available, and you can kind of see where the challenges might exist. They're also not playing with their full starting 5 on the offensive line, but we forget that most of that offensive line, when it's fully healthy, is very good. And even with 3 of 5 or maybe 4 of 5 starters, it's still going to be good. It's still going to create opportunities for Javonte Williams to get going and to balance out this offense and to allow Dak Prescott to cook. took. And that's going to be their identity and their strength. And you're absolutely right. Him and Brian Schottenheimer have a really good partnership going, and we saw it from week 1, and we continue to see it. So I think this is what you should expect from the Cowboys. It was really nice to see George Pickens bounce back from that frustrating game in Chicago last week and come out tonight and catch 8 balls for 134 yards and 2 touchdowns, including that clutch touchdown late in the game. But it also kind of demonstrates how they're working with, chewing gum and duct tape on the defensive side, and this is the only way that they can play football. Now, on the Packers side, you expect a stronger defense. That's what they were, as of the fourth quarter of last week. The offense melted down in that game against the Browns, not the defense necessarily. They were put in bad positions. Tonight was a different story. Tonight's one of those games where you have to go back to the drawing board and see, what did we do wrong? What was wrong with our tackling, especially on that Pickens touchdown? We're better than that. And I think it's a good wake-up call for them overall.
Yeah, and I want to check out this Pickens touchdown because that was when, things just really started to get real weird, after that dreary first half.
After Prescott back and standing and fires it left, and it's caught. Pickens circles away. 10, 5, Pickens, pylon, Pickens. Touchdown, touchdown, touchdown.
When we came back, Jordan, I told you this game reminded me way too much of the Giants-Cowboys game, right? And the shootout. That touchdown was scored with 43 seconds left in the fourth quarter, and this game ended up going to overtime. It was the same story almost, except for 1 or 2 less Russell Wilson moon balls. It makes for entertaining content. It makes for a fun night of football, even if it ended in a tie. So that's all we can take. And by the way, Jordan, this game at one point was 13-2. Yes. And the 2 points were scored on a return blocked field goal for 2. It was a crazy night.
We went from what the hell just happened, chaotic bad, to what the hell just happened, chaotic good. And we finished in what the hell just happened, chaotic neutral. So I like to say we've got some balance. And here on NFL Daily, we had great balance today. We had a plethora of people, remote, in studio, Nick. It was nice to kind of run things with you. I'm starting to get a little mad with power here. I'm looking forward to Monday night recaps with you this week. It's going to be super fun. You're such a pro. And you guys, when Bad Bunny is performing at halftime of the Super Bowl, football is back.